Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I have something very exciting for you all. In honor of Eid tomorrow, a lot of you guys have been asking me to share some more sweet recipes. So today's video, I'm going to be sharing my Mithai recipe. Now I shared this video for the original Guyanese Mithai a little while ago on my channel, probably 2 years ago at this point, but I wanted to do an updated version because I have some more tips and tricks on how to get the softest and most melt in your mouth Mithai ever. I promise as soon as you put this Mithai to your lips and you take a bite, it's gonna crumble and just melt in your mouth. It's super rich and delicious with all of the spices. And honestly, if you guys are feeling for just an amazing dessert, even if you're not celebrating Eid tomorrow, go ahead and give this a try because it was perfect for my cup of tea. So before we begin, I want to show you the ingredients. I have some all-purpose flour, some coconut milk, which you could swap out for regular milk if you don't have. I have my custard powder here, that's going to make it nice and rich, as well as some milk powder. And those two are optional, you can use one or the other as well. Some baking powder, some cardamom seeds that I'm actually going to grind up really fine to add in. And I have some cinnamon, some anise seed, a little bit of ground ginger, as well as some nutmeg. And I'm going to freshly grate that because I find that fresh grated nutmeg is much better than the already grated one. I'm going in with a little bit of condensed milk, a little bit of milk to mix my dough as well, and some vanilla as well as my coconut, and of course the butter. Now if you wanted to, for the milks, the coconut milk or the regular milk, you could swap one out for the other, or you could use a combo of both like I'm doing. Whatever you want to do, go ahead and do it as per what you have. So we're going to start off in a large bowl and we're going to add in all of that all-purpose flour. Then on top of that, we're going to add in the baking powder. And again, I have all of my ingredients and measurements down in the description box below, so this way you can be notified on exactly what's going in here. Now I'm going in with my ground ginger, the ground cinnamon, as well as the ground anise seeds. And now I'm going in with my milk powder, as well as my custard powder. Now, the milk powder and custard powder are optional, but I highly recommend them because they give such a rich and delectable flavor to the Mithai. And once you add in all of those ingredients, you're going to go in with your ground nutmeg. Again, use the freshly grated stuff because it is so much better than the already ground nutmeg. Now I'm going in with my freshly ground cardamom. Now I like to go ahead and grind them fresh because I found that the already powdered version is not as pungent and not as strong. And with the freshly grounded one, you get such a fresh and a really nice sweet flavor from that cardamom. So I highly recommend doing that as well. Now what you're going to want to do after adding in all of those ingredients is go ahead and mix it up really well. You just want to get everything nice and combined so this way all of the flavors are distributed throughout the Mithai. Now once you go ahead and mix that up really well, you're going to take your stick of butter that we had and you're going to actually grate it into the dough. Now you have a few choices here. You could go ahead and you can cut it up into chunks and then rub it in, or you can go ahead and grate it and then rub it in. I prefer to grate it just because when you grate it, you actually get the butter even more distributed and it's easier on your fingers as you're mixing it in. And once you finish grating in all of your butter, you're going to go ahead and mix it up really well and rub it into the flour until you get something that resembles fine breadcrumbs. And this is the texture that you're looking for. You want it to be very fine and crumbly in texture. And at this point, we're going to go in with our freshly grated coconut. Now, if you didn't have the fresh version, you could of course use the already packaged grated one at the grocery store. But I prefer this because it just comes out more flavorful and it comes out more soft. Now you're going to go in with your condensed milk as well as your vanilla, which I did forget to get a shot of, and you're going to go ahead and start to mix it in. You want to go ahead and mix these things in really well so this way they get evenly incorporated as well. So once you go in with the condensed milk and vanilla and you mix it up really well, you're going to go in with your coconut milk. Now, the coconut milk that I'm using, I'm going to give you a full measurement of exactly how much I'm using, but basically you're going to mix the coconut milk in, and then if you see that it is still a little dry, you're going to go ahead and add in some evaporated milk on top of that just to bring it all together. You don't want to use all coconut milk for this because I find that it is a little too rich, but of course if you wanted to, feel free to do that. If you wanted to try to make this vegan, you could go ahead and use all coconut milk and you can omit the butter and you can use vegan butter or maybe even a little bit of coconut oil. So go ahead and play around with it depending on your tastes and preferences and your dietary needs and see what works best for you. Now I basically kept adding a little bit of evaporated milk at a time just to get it mixed in really well. And whenever you're making Mithai, you want a semi-soft dough. Now you don't want something as soft as when you're making roti. I would say you want it more so as when you're making bake, not too soft. But you want it to be a little firm as well, so this way they can fry up and be nice and flaky and crispy on the outside. After you've mixed up your dough, you do not need to let it sit. You can go ahead and cook it right away. Now, if you did want to let it sit for a little bit just because you have the time, you can. You can let it sit for as long as you want. But basically what I did is right after mixing, I divided it up into 4 dough balls and I smoothened them out a little bit, and now I'm rolling them out one by one. The reason why I do that is so this way I can roll one ball, cut it up, and then that will be one batch in the oil that I have to fry, and then I can go back and keep rolling. If you want to cut them all out at once, or if you want to do it in batches like I'm doing, do exactly what is easier for you. So just roll it out to be 3/4 of an inch thick. Make sure it is not too thin, because if it's too thin, they're not going to puff up properly and they're going to be too hard. Once you finish rolling out your mithai to about 3/4 of an inch thick, you're going to go ahead and cut it. As you guys can see, I'm cutting them pretty large. I don't want to make them too small, but if you want them smaller, feel free to do that. If you want them even bigger, feel free to do that as well. It's totally up to you and your preferences. And I'm going with the traditional diamond shapes as well as those triangles. That's usually how I see mithai cut whenever I go anywhere, so that's how I'm doing it. But you could play around with different shapes too, maybe even use some cookie cutters to have a little something fun for your kids. After you finish cutting out all of your mithai, you're going to start laying it down in your hot oil. As you guys can see, my oil is not vigorously sizzling. That's exactly what you want, because if it is too hot and it starts to sizzle too much and they come up right away, they will start to burn on the outside and they will not cook evenly on the inside. So basically, I'm going to put these in, cook them for about 3 to 4 minutes until they are a beautiful golden brown color all over the outside. So my mithais have been cooking for about 4 minutes now, and as you guys can see, they've puffed up really well. That's because of the baking powder, and they're beautiful and golden brown on the outside. I wanted to mention that if you were making this, you want to make sure to regulate that heat, because if it's too high, the condensed milk in the dough will actually burn very, very quick, and it'll make the outsides of the mithai get very black, and then they won't be cooked properly on the inside. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and continue frying the rest of my mithai. You want to go back and roll out one of the dough balls, cut it out, fry it in your hot oil, and again, each batch will take about 3 to 4 minutes. When they're done, you're going to put them onto a bowl or a plate that is lined with paper towels, so this way any of that excess oil can go ahead and be absorbed. And once you finish all of that, we can go ahead and move on to making that sugar syrup or the pog that's going to coat the mithai. Making the pog or your sugar syrup for the mithai sometimes can be the most daunting step for people, but I promise if you follow these few simple steps, you can make the perfect coating for your mithai every time. Now, if you want an even more detailed version on how to make this sugar syrup, go ahead and check out the first mithai video I ever did on my channel. I'll have it linked right up here on the right hand corner. And if you skip to the part where I talk about the sugar syrup where I'm making it, I go really into depth about it, and that might be a little more help to you guys. As you guys can see, I've gone into a small pot. I've added in my granulated sugar, or you could use the brown Demerara sugar, and I added in my water, and I'm going to stir it and bring it up to a boil. So my sugar syrup was cooking for about 15 minutes. Now, this might be a little too much time for some of you guys just because I was using a really small pot, so it took a while to boil properly. But as you guys can see, around the edges of the pot, you see a little white coating. Once you see that snowy white coating and all of those fine bubbles or small bubbles bubbling up on the side of the pot, that's how you know it's done. Also, when the bubbles slow down a little bit, that's how you know it's done as well. So I'm going to go in with a little bit more cardamom that I've ground up, and I'm just adding it in and I'm stirring it in. I add it in at the end so this way I can get that full flavor and that full effect. And once your sugar syrup is done, you are going to pour it all over the mithai. Now, as you guys can see, I transferred my mithai into a really, really large pot. I have my karahi here, and that's what I'm using just because I don't have a bowl that's big enough. So with the help of my dad, I went ahead and had him pour the sugar syrup all over the mithai. And basically you want to go in and you want to stir it up really well. Now the stirring process can take anywhere from 6 to maybe 10 minutes just depending on how hard your sugar syrup is, but you're going to keep on tossing until each mithai is coated and it has a snowy white coating all over. I just wanted to mention that my mithai is really nice and soft and fluffy on the inside. So with that, sometimes you get a few that will burst and that may fall apart as you're mixing it up with the sugar. But hey guys, we're not aiming for perfection, we're aiming for the perfect taste. And I promise you guys, this is the softest, most melt in your mouth mithai you will ever try. As you guys can see, it was falling apart over there, but it is totally fine. Just keep on tossing and I promise it will come together. You guys just look at this mithai. It looks amazing. It has the perfect coating all over it. And remember, some of them did break up, but that is totally fine, guys. Everybody will enjoy it and will love it just the same way. And I switched to a metal spoon just because it was easier on my hand, but if you prefer to use a wooden spoon, do that as well. So at this point, your mithai is done and ready to serve. Alright guys, these mithais were absolutely perfect. I'm going to bite into one and show you the inside and how fluffy and melt in your mouth it was. This was the best batch of mithai that I've ever made, and I can't wait to share all of the measurements in the description box with you because you're going to have the perfect ratio of everything. Now if you're celebrating Eid tomorrow, I hope you try this and make this for your family because they will love it. And of course, if you're not celebrating tomorrow, or if you have a holiday coming up or a party or something like that, this is something that you're going to want to try to make for your friends and family. So if you enjoyed, go ahead and give it a nice big thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you aren't subscribed yet. Leave your comments down below as well. I'll see you guys again very soon. I have some mithai to eat. Bye guys.